In this video, we want to look at how to create a manual sales invoice as in receivables. So we would go into the application and select the receivables vision operations responsibility, and then we navigate to transactions. So the source we're going to select is manual, and the class is invoice and type is invoice, and it's all defaulting to today's date. The source, class and type are three very important setup steps in accounts receivable. The source indicates that the invoice was created manually in receivables rather than being imported from another application. The class indicates that this transaction is an invoice rather than a credit memo or one of the other classes of transactions in receivables. And the transaction type is a user-defined setup that controls much of the functionality of the transactions in receivables. And this includes the accounting that will be generated for the transaction, and whether the transaction can have a debit or a credit balance or both, whether freight can be added to the transaction, what the tax is for the transaction, whether the transaction is taxable or not, whether more cash can be applied against the transaction than the balance of the transaction, and a lot more. So that's the key. The key there is the type. So in the main tab, we want to select the ship to as our my big. This is my big city, and that will automatically default the bill to as well. And that's because we have a different bill to location to a ship to location as well. So that should default in terms of the numbers. And then you can see certain key things which have been added. So for example, you've got the paying customer, sold to, payment terms, the due date's been, and also if it's been going to be receipted by any other method, some other methods, direct debits, then we could have a receipt method in here as well to indicate how we're going to receive the funds. So I'm going to go to line items, and I want to add 2 items for this invoice. So line number 1, the item is a CS, which could be consultant 03755, and that will default as a consultant. Quantity 10, unit price 1500, and tax classification is based on location. Line number 2 will be just a description, not an item. This is, I'm just going to call the second one solutions architect, and again units of measure will be day, but this time we can only afford this guy for, or this person for 5 days, and they're charging us 3 grand per day. So save the information. Tax is based on location, so the distributions will be based upon the setup that we have in things like the transaction type and so on, and tax, which is based on location, is already calculated. So if I click on distributions, we should be able to see for the line, we can see that's going to revenue, and then for the first one, again distributions is going to revenue. We could change this to say that we want this to go to 05 as an example. 50, it needs to be 50, not 05. Okay, and for this other one as well, distribution, we'll put it into company 50. So save it, Control S, and I'm going to come out of this. So if I click on distributions, I should be able to see all the distribution lines. So you can see everything that's coming through, rounding differences, all the tax going to the other company, and we can see the information going through. So we will have some intra-company transactions happening between 01 and 50, but we'll leave that for now. So once you've completed your invoice, you click on the complete button, and then this is checked, and you should be able to view what the invoice will look like. So there we go. So let's have a quick look at what the invoice looks like, and you can see the transaction number is also defaulted in as well. That's our invoice number, our transaction number. So let's just have a look at the invoice, which will open in a web page. We can also print the invoice using the invoice print program. This is what the invoice looks like. So we can see the total amount for $32,175 as at today. So next we want to generate the accounting. We can go and do that from here. We can go to Tools, Create Accounting, and we want to do this in Final Accounting and Post to GL. Click on OK. Create Final Accounting and Post to GL will actually post it directly to General Ledger, but if we had selected Create Accounting, it would only create the accounting and we can view it in Subledger Accounting, and Draft just gives us the draft of what the accounting will look like. So that's gone into General Ledger. So I'm going to come out of this form, and that's how to create your invoice, your sales invoice. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.